All right, everyone. So we're going to move on to talking about the thorax itself. So the thorax is the next major segment of the body after the head. And I am envisioning having to talk about this in a couple sections just because the thorax is extremely complicated. It's the major locomotive segment for insects. It has a lot of structures on it. We already talked about the legs. We still have to talk about the wings. And it has multiple planes with a lot of different vocabulary associated with each plane. So I figured we would do a brief intro today, and then we would divide this into the dorsal surface, which is the notum. So let's draw this out. If you imagine the thorax as a block, the thorax tends to be considerably blockier in insects than like the abdomen is. So it's kind of blocky, a little bit curved. And the reason for this is because it's heavily sclerotized. It's heavily strengthened and reinforced because of all the muscle attachments for the legs and the wings. So it has to be sturdy, kind of vault-like, if you will, so that it doesn't get torn apart from the force of its own muscles pulling on it. So if you have the dorsal surface up here, you have the ventral surface down here. This will be a cross section. So if you cut the thorax in half, you have the gut running down the center, you have the heart running down the back, and you have the nerve cord running down the venter. The dorsal surface of the thorax is usually called the notum. So this is the dorsal surface. And for the abdomen, it is called the tergum. So sometimes people will still use the word tergum when they're talking about the thorax, but traditionally it's referred to as the notum. The ventral surface is usually called the sternum. And that's true for both the thorax and the abdomen. It's the sternum or the sternal surface. So this is the ventral surface. And the side surface is called the pleuron or the pleural surface. And this is how I am envisioning that we will talk about the surfaces of the thorax. So we'll talk about the notum, then we'll talk about the pleuron, and then we'll talk about the sternum and all of the different structures associated with it. As far as the structures go, they are usually identified as sternites. So these are the structures. The sternites are not sternites, I'm sorry. They're usually referred to as sclerites. So you have the sternites on the bottom, the tergites or the notites on the top, and the pleurites on the sides. They are called sclerites because they are sclerotized plates. And these are the plates that you see all over insect bodies. So if we go to a photo of this, you will see what I'm talking about. So if you look at this grasshopper, all of these various plates. So this is the pronotal plate here. That's a sclerite. You have a plate running here. Actually, I believe this plate runs like this. You have a plate here. If you were to remove the wings, you'd see a number of plates stacked on top. This is a plate here. On the abdomen, you have these individual plates on the top and on the bottom. So these are all sclerites, but this is a tergite because it's on top. And this is a sternite because it's on the bottom. And anything on the side, this would be a pleurite. So these are all sclerites. And we will be using this term for the rest of the outer insect anatomy. Each of these plates, these sclerites, has a name. So when you're reading about an insect or trying to identify an insect, sometimes it will describe the characters of a specific plate. These plates have standard names across all insects, and then they're usually numbered. So it'll be like the first tergite, first abdominal tergite, second abdominal tergite, third abdominal tergite, and then on the sternal side it'll be the first, the second, the third, and so on and so on. So it is standardized. That does help quite a bit. On the higher order insects, like the flies and the wasps, when you look at their structures, they tend to have more plates than other insects. So they generally have extremely reinforced thorax, because they have such large flight muscles. Flies and wasps are extremely good flyers, so they tend to have very, very large thoraxes. So if you compare the size of this thorax to the size of the abdomen, you can see that even though the thorax is only 3 segments, the abdomen is basically the same size, and that's many more segments. But these specialized plates tend to have much more specialized names. So learning the plate names or the sclerite names for flies and wasps can take more time than learning the generalized plates. And I might do a video on that at some point, but for this thorax section, I just want to go over the generalized plates with you guys. So if you go back to what we were talking about, let's actually start a new view. So the insect this will be a dorsal view, just so we're all on the same page. The insect head is connected to, so this is the head, is connected to the thorax, which is made up of 3 sections, which are generally tightly fused together. So this will be the thorax. And then you have the abdomen on the back. This is the abdomen. The neck is called the cervix. And it is a kind of a fusion between the membranes of the prothorax and of the labium from the bottom of the head. And these fuse together to form a membranous neck, and there are generally 2 cervical sclerites on the sides. Each section of the thorax is named. This is the prothorax, 1, 2, and 3. The second one is the mesothorax, and the third is the metathorax. And there's a leg that comes off of each one. So generally speaking, there's a leg associated with each thoracic segment. The prothorax frequently has a large shield on the back called the So I forget that this is a dorsal view. So there's usually a large shield on the back of insects that shields usually the back side of the head and the neck, which is very soft. And this is called the shield. This large dorsal sclerite is called the pronotum. So there's the word notum again for the back. It's the prothoracic notum. It's the pronotum. On the dorsal surfaces of the mesothorax and the metathorax is where you develop the wings. So the wings arise as lateral body wall extensions of the mesothorax and the metathorax. So this is where the wings come in. The prothorax does not have wings. There is genetic evidence that in one group of insects called the membracids, their large pronotal sculpture is basically a third set of prothoracic wings. But in all other insects, the wings only occur on the mesothorax and the metathorax. The other word that we will deal with quite a bit when talking about the thorax is something called, so these are the wings, something called the phragma. And this will be more when we're talking about the internal structure of the thorax. Plural is called the phragmata. Phragmata. And these are at the height, so they're behind the wings, and they're these long creases that you'll see running down the dorsal surface of the thorax. And these are large apodemes. And if you will remember, apodemes are invaginations of the body wall used for structural support. These are the points where the lateral muscles of the wings attach. So they're quite large, and it's not quite the end of each segment, but it's right towards the end of each segment. So those are the phragma, or the phragmata. I believe that that's all the terminology that I want to talk about today. I think I'll redraw this so you can see it again from a side view. So we have the head, a thin neck, and then the three segments. So this is pro, meso, and meta, and then the abdomen. The wings will be coming off of these segments, so this is a lateral view. This is the head. Here's its big eye and its antenna. The legs come off of the pleural surface of each of the thoracic segments. The wings come off the dorsal surface of the last two thoracic segments. The pronotum will largely be this plate that covers up the neck and the prothoracic dorsal surface, so pronotum. Again, you have the notum up here, you have the sternum down here, and the side is called the pleuron. We talked about the legs last time, so we won't need to talk about that again, but we will talk about the arising of the legs from the pleural surface. This is called the coxal cavity. We'll talk about that probably not next time. Next time I want to talk about the notum and all of the plates that make up the notum and the positioning of the wings on the notum. So that I'll stop there today for this video, and we'll pick up on the nota next time. Thanks.